Hello world! In today's video, we will be covering the following in regards to Git Rebase and Squash using command line. First, what you need to do before you rebase. Second, a simple rebase where you don't need to squash. Third, a simple rebase and squash using interactive rebase. Fourth, a complex interactive rebase and squash where only some commits need to be squashed and a conflict occurs. And fifth, advice for rebasing remote branches. Feel free to use the timestamps below to watch the parts that interest you the most. Now, let's fire up our terminals. Before you begin your rebase locally, please make sure you have pulled down the latest version of the branch you want to rebase against. For example, I created my feature branch off develop. So let me check out develop, perform a git fetch, and a git pull. Great, I already have the latest. Let me quickly show you what I have to work with. As we can see here, the latest commit against develop was on the 13th of April. So, when we perform our rebase, we'd expect all commits in my child branch to appear at the top of this commit. Now that we know what our new base is, let's switch back to our child branch and begin the rebase process. Now I'm back on my child branch. Let's see the child branch's commit history. Here we can see the last commit on this branch was on the 3rd of April. Compared to the parent branch of develop, we are missing the 13th of April commit. This makes this branch a prime candidate for rebase. The command to perform a simple rebase is git rebase, followed by the name of the branch you want to rebase against. You can put the commit hash there instead if you desire. But to keep things simple, I will put the name of my parent branch, develop. And that's all there is to it. If we look at the logs now, we can see that April 5 commit is at the top of the log, and the missing April 13 post is now the new base appearing underneath. It looks like we branched off develop recently, doesn't it? If you're confused as to why the older commit date appears before the newer commit date, let me show you how this works with the command git log -- pretty equals fuller. Here we go. As I mentioned before in my Understanding Git Rebase and Squash video, every commit has two dates under the hood. The author date, which stays as the original commit date, e.g. April 5, and the commit date, which updates to when the rebase happened, in this case, April 14. Thanks to the commit date, this rebase commit moves to the top of the branch's history. Next, we will learn how to perform a simple rebase and squash. To begin, we will type git rebase -i, which means perform an interactive rebase, followed by the name of the branch you'd like to rebase with. As part of the interactive rebase, we have a few options here. In today's tutorial, we will stick to learning how to use pick and squash. When a commit is marked as picked, it means that we will keep this commit as it is. So if we left both commits as pick, we would finish the rebase and retain both commits. When a commit is marked as squash, it will be squashed into the commit prior. In our example, this means the first commit must remain as pick. Let's enter the Vim editor's insert mode by using the letter I. Mark the second commit as squash, hit escape to exit the insert mode, then use :WQ to write and quit the Vim editor. As part of a squash, you will be given the opportunity to enter a new commit message for the two commits you've just squashed. You can choose to leave them as they are or modify them. In the corporate world, you'd normally combine the commit messages so it reads as if you made one commit to begin with. So in this example, I'll show you how to modify a commit. Simply hit I to enter insert mode. Make your changes to your commit message. When done, hit escape, then type :WQ to write and quit. There, all done. Now let's have a look at our git log history using git log -- pretty equals fuller to see what happened. Nice, So as we can see, our feature branch was rebased to the latest developed commit on the 13th of April. And we only have one commit above it, which is our modified squashed commit message. How are you doing so far? Are you able to follow along? If not, feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. If so, let's progress to the harder rebase and squash. In this rebase scenario, we have a total of 4 commits, which all occurred after the last developed commit date on April 13. 2 of these commits relate to a H3 element in the middle, so we want to squash those and leave the other 2 alone. Let's see how to do this now. Let's enter the interactive rebase process to squash those commits by using Git Rebase -I develop. As we can see, the 2 middle commits are the commits we want to squash. In order to do this, we will need to mark the 3rd commit as squash only. A commit marked as squash will be combined into the nearest earlier commit marked as pick. If you wanted to merge the last commit into the 2 above it, you would also mark this commit as squash. That would result in 2 commits rather than 3. If you wanted to squash all of them together, you'd mark all of them except for the first commit as squash. Now that we know what to do, let's mark the 3rd commit as squash by pressing I. Once done, escape, :WQ. Behold, we have our first conflict. But don't worry, you can resolve the conflict in the same way you always have. But there is a catch. Let me show you by opening the conflicting file in Visual Studio Code. When you trigger a conflict while rebasing, the marker head represents the parent branch that you are attempting to rebase against. In my case, this is develop, while the incoming changes are from the commit from my child branch that's causing the conflict. If you've watched any of my previous Git videos before, you will notice that this is the reverse order of a merge conflict, where the head represents the changes in your current branch and the incoming changes are from the branch you're trying to merge with. So just be sure to keep that in mind when resolving your conflicts. In my case, I'd like to resolve the changes using the incoming changes. In VS Code, I'm using the resolve using theirs approach. This removes the changes from head, preserves the incoming changes, marks the conflict as resolved, and stages the file. Whatever your scenario may be for resolving a conflict, make sure you have marked the file as resolved and staged the file. Do not commit, I repeat, do not commit. Once you have resolved your conflict, return to your terminal and enter Git Rebase -continue. You have now been given the opportunity to amend the picked commit message that caused the conflict. As the next step is to squash the commit into this one, you don't need to modify it as you will do this in the squash phase, but it's good practice to mention a conflict was resolved here. For demonstration purposes, I will update the title of the commit. I to insert, showcase, edit on conflict. I've gone over the 50 character limit, hence the red highlighting. This won't stop me from saving this commit, but it's good practice to limit the title to 50 characters and place any additional information in the message body. For this demo, I'll leave it as is, but I will do a Git commit message best practice guide as a future video. Subscribe if you want to see that. Now, escape, :WQ. Oh noes, we have another conflict. This time, it's the commit we marked as squash. Calm down everyone, this is part of the rebase process. You will need to resolve every conflict for every file impacted by the rebase. But don't worry, the process for resolution is the same. Just remember that the head marker is your parent branch you're rebasing against, and the incoming changes are what's from your child branch. Once you have resolved your changes with your preferred method, mark the file as resolved, and staged your resolution, do not commit. Let me resolve my conflict quickly. There, I have resolved my conflict and have now returned to my terminal. As before, I will enter Git Rebase -continue. We are on the final stretch now. As we are now in the squashing part of the rebase, We now have the opportunity to edit the combined Git messages. Ideally, you would also mention that you resolved another conflict here. For the purposes of this demo, let me modify the messages a little. Conflict on H3, title and styling, resolve to H3. The O, that'll do. :WQ. Finally, we have completed the rebase process. Woo! Let's take a look at the Git log now with git log --, pretty equals fuller. Okay, at the top we have our untouched commit with an author date of April 5, followed by the new rebase date of April 14. After that, we have the squashed commits related to the H3 update with the author date March 30 and the same commit date. Then we have the next commit untouched except for the rebase date. And we have the latest dev commit at the bottom. If you've already pushed your branch to the remote repository and then attempted to rebase or squash, a normal push will fail. This is because Git sees a completely different history from the one you're trying to push, assumes you're missing commits, and rejects the push. It will then prompt you to pull before pushing. But if you do, your rebase and squash commits will be combined with the old history, undoing your work. So don't pull these changes. Instead, use git push --force -with -lease. Let's break this down. --force tells Git to override the existing history and accept your changes. --force -with -lease adds a safety check to ensure no one has pushed new commits that you don't have, preventing accidental overrides. This way, you keep your written history without losing anyone else's changes. And that wraps up the tutorial on performing a Git rebase and squash using Git Bash. If the command line feels a bit tricky, don't worry. I'll be covering the same rebase process in SourceTree in an upcoming video. Or want to explore more content from me, be sure to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell to stay updated. Until then, this is Micro, logging out.